Hi everyone. I hope this video will be helpful to you in successfully completing the artifact video assignment. Here are some of my favorite tips for putting this together, and I know that there are various areas that are of concern to you, so I've tried to divide it into looking at organizing the content, looking at the visual aspects of your presentation, and last, looking at some technical helps that may be useful to you, or technical programs that may be useful to you. And then we'll look at the e-class page and just see where we can find all of the information. So let's go. Okay, this may be obvious, but step one is deciding on an artifact. And this can actually become a little bit of a trick, because there's often, you start looking around and there's all kinds of things. So this may be obvious but true, but by now most of you'll have identified one or more artifacts of interest to you that demonstrate in some way the ways in which gender shapes practices in schools. So once you decide on you look at all of them, you decide, you might want to keep in mind that you can further develop your analysis of the issue raised by your artifact in this assignment in your final paper. So you'll have done a little bit of the work and you can extend that work in your final paper. This certainly isn't necessary. I'm not saying this is what you have to do or what you should do. I'm just saying this is a possibility. And I'm happy for you to take it up if you choose to do so. Over the years, the topics have been very diverse. Here's just a sample of ones that students have successfully identified and then analyzed during their video presentation. So there's a whole list of them. I'm not going to talk about all of them, but it could be something as simple as staff assignments list for extracurricular activities. Somebody took that and looked at who was doing what, and then extended that to thinking about who was doing what in other parts of the school as well. So it was kind of an interesting beginning point to that whole examination. Another had become really interested because of where she was in her career, thinking about what one of the ratings from Bruner had said. Now, it's not one that we're using in this course, but you can find it in the extra readings that are listed. But what she did was then look at her resume and compare it to what Bruner talks about women spending a lot more time before they move into higher levels of, for example, superintendency or principals of large schools and that sort of thing. And looked at her own practice and saw how that fit, and then talked to a few other people and developed a little bit of a research project based on that. Of course, not naming anybody or naming schools, etc., but just simply using that as a way of confirming what she found in her own resume. So there are a myriad of ways in which you can approach this, and these are just some of them. As teachers organizing to teach others effectively, of course, what you do, that's what you do every day. So I'm not going to give you teaching tips, because you could probably give me teaching tips. But just a gentle reminder that your presentation is a means of sharing knowledge with others, with your colleagues, and other people if you wanted to share it with others as well. Maybe you've decided that this might be good in one of your teacher meetings or something. But anyway, it's a way to precipitate conversation with your colleagues. So hopefully you'll do it in an effective and interesting way that requires careful preparation. You can't just kind of, approach this like any other teaching opportunity, just kind of willy-nilly, and you know that very, very well. But the other limitation that you have to really think about is the time limitation. And there are various technical reasons for that, as well as just being mindful of your colleagues' time in communicating the information that you want to share. So that means that you have to be organized around this as well. So once your artifact is chosen and the issue it represents is identified, then in order to provide a thoughtful analysis of the gender issues involved, a review of the literature around that issue is really important. Course readings are a great start. You may find readings among the supplementary readings that are helpful as well. I've already mentioned an example of that. You may have readings from other courses that will be useful, that you've done in other coursework already. And of course, and probably most importantly, a library search is always helpful. And if you haven't become familiar with literature searches on the library site, then by all means, take the time to do so. not only will it be helpful for this assignment, but it will be helpful when you do your final project, etc. You need to be aware of how you do these kinds of things through the library website, as well as, of course, at the library itself. And I would strongly suggest that you contact the librarian in person if it's possible, or you can use the Ask Me pop-up that's on the library website. And then you can also browse their help links as well. They are there to help you, and in my experience, I found them wonderful, and I know a lot of students have said the same thing. That the librarians in our library and at the Faculty of Education, and in the other libraries as well for that matter, are just wonderful at helping you find and sort through information. They love doing it, and if they have the time and they're not swamped with other things, and most of the time they make the time, they'll be able to really help you out. So do avail yourself of that opportunity. Our library is actually one of the best in Canada. In fact, in the US too, I've had American scholars come up specifically to be able to use our education library and the other libraries as well. So become familiar with it and use it. It's a great resource. Based on the literature, then you're going to develop your analysis. Then you're going to identify the key points within that analysis. And because you don't want to drown people watching the video with lots and lots of text. And I'm guilty of this, and it probably bores you to tears when I am. So keep that in mind when you're putting together your video. So identifying those key points will help you organize your visual presentation in a way that's meaningful, that puts the point across in a visual way, but then you can augment it with the narrative that you include. Then you're going to want to organize your PowerPoint or whatever it is that you use to organize the information, and develop some visuals. By video, you could do that, or just resources of pictures that are online, your own pictures. For example, the picture of the fellow hanging from a kite over a cliff down at the end of my street. That's a snap I took with my iPhone, so there are various ways in which you can use the pictures that you've developed yourself. You can use these to augment and talk to the talking points that you're using, or approach it in some other way if you wish, but organizing how you will communicate the information in some kind of visual format is key. So you need to be thinking about that as you're also organizing this information. And I should say, although I've separated this out a bit in this video, of course, as you do this, it will kind of weave in, various aspects of this project will weave into one another. So, so I'm making it sound like it's one step after the other, but in fact, I find it's much more holistic kind of a process. And then based on the organization of your presentation, you go start to develop a series of points or an actual script to use for your narration on the video. Then time it and edit as necessary. Say it out loud. My neighbors must wonder what I'm doing here sometimes, but I'll sit here and read out the script that I put together, or read out the points that I put together and talk to them to get familiar with it, first of all, so I'm comfortable with the content when I'm recording. And I don't feel so self-conscious when I'm recording that information. So, actually say it out loud, and then see whether it fits in the time constraints that you've set for yourself. When you record, as I've said, practice first. And if you need to stop and go back to the beginning of the recording, that's certainly possible, and it's worth it if you're not happy with part of what's going on. Okay, let's quickly move along. Developing the visual part of your presentation is the trickiest part of this presentation, at least for some people if they're not used to the technology. You can keep it simple with PowerPoint and a voiceover, and some of the examples that you'll have a look at have pretty well done that. Or you can get more complex and in some ways more interesting with visuals that are videotaped and inserted, for example. But the bottom line is keep it moving and interesting while being thoughtful and informative. For some ideas about how people have done this, I've posted some videos with permission to act as exemplars of various approaches, as I've already mentioned. And you can decide what is most effective, What is helpful to you as a viewer? So as you're watching them, watch them critically. They're well done, but watch them critically. Is there something you'd change? Is there something, an idea that you'd like to use? That sort of thing. So that's what they're there for. You can find links to those presentations posted in the information box for this video, and I will advise by email and so on of other places for this information as well. Decide on your recording platform, and I'll talk more about that later on too. For example, if you want to include video in your presentation and you have a Mac, you may already be familiar with iMovie for editing film from video recordings and so on. There are many other editing platforms as well, but it's most helpful to keep this aspect of things as simple as possible for time reasons and just to kind of keep it straightforward. If you're unfamiliar with videotaping but want to include it as part of the assignment, ask a young person. Every young person I know is posting on YouTube already. So how do they do that? Find out from them and they'll be able to explain it to you or help you with it as you're moving through the project. Or there may be a tech person in your school system, at your school, etc. So use those resources as well. And while you're doing it for this assignment, if this isn't something you're familiar with, you can also use this for all kinds of other things in your own teaching practice or your own professional practice. Once you've video recorded what you've chosen to include, you can incorporate it in several ways into your video as background for your voiceover, for example. Editing in quick cuts from that video to illustrate a point you're making on PowerPoint. You can add visual interest in the intro or the conclusion and so on. So, you can use them quite creatively once you've got that stuff on tape. Once your whole presentation is edited, you've put it together in a way that you like, you've added video clips or you've added photos to your presentation, etc. You can then decide on your projection platform. The easiest is YouTube. You do have to set up your own channel. It's quite easy to do. And you'll be restricted to 10 minutes unless you get special permission to record longer. Obviously, I've gotten special permission to do that for educational reasons. And you may be able to make that case as well, because you could use this for, you can use it for, sending out things to your parents or your the young people in your class or whatever. But generally, you're limited to 10 minutes. However, it gives you an URL, which is really important because you can simply list that URL for your colleagues for this assignment or anybody else that you're sending something out to, and they can just click that URL, easily open the presentation, and it makes it easy peasy. So you may be saying, with all this technical stuff, oh, help. Which is exactly what I was saying actually a few years ago when I began teaching online. I wanted to add a visual element. I'm a teacher and I'm used to that, and just having students kind of given readings and say go and do it felt kind of odd to me. So I wanted to be able to do videos. So I talked to the tech people and said, how can I do this? How can I do this easily? Because I didn't want to get involved in really complicated stuff. And I was referred to a program called Screencast-O-Matic. Now, this is only one possibility. There are others, and you can find them by Googling or through your school system or whatever. So I'm not a spokesperson for Screencast-O-Matic or anything. I've just found it personally very, very helpful. And I've got the clip here, and I'll put it in the information box as well. I came across this actually just the other day. I've looked at lots of videos, but this is by far the best one. For one thing, because it's education focused, and it's clear, it's concise. So if you're curious about Screencast-O-Matic, you can look at this, and it gives you the basics without a whole lot of frills attached to it. And you can watch it over and over again. It's fairly short. I think it's about 11.5 minutes or something. And you could, keep referring to it. He has other videos too. I haven't looked at them, or there might be others that would be interesting for you as well. But this basic one really helps clarify the basics of using Screencast-O-Matic. For me, learning Screencast-O-Matic was relatively painless. I mean, I figured it out, and that means that it's easy and quite intuitive. So that makes it, for me, something that's helpful for an assignment like this if you're not familiar with technology already, because you can do it and do it in fairly short order. However, it does take a bit of time. So set aside part of a morning or evening to get familiar with it. Watch the video, play around with it. Basically, it records anything that's on your computer screen. Right now I'm using it, for example, to record this, and I've set the grab lines around the part of what is on my screen. So they're set around this part of my screen. I've got it set up for slideshow, and this way I can see to the side of what I'm showing you the next video or the next screen. And I can also see a little script that I've put there for myself, and you don't need to see that. That's for me. So I just put it around the part that I want to record, and that makes it really, really simple to use. I don't have to record the whole screen, but I can. So this gives me lots of ways to play with content, and it makes it easy for me to use it. I can stop and start record so that when I want to change what I'm recording on my screen, for example, when I've inserted videos from YouTube, which I've done on some previous videos, I can stop recording. I can set my screen up so that I'm recording that. I can set the grab bars again, and then I can record. And that what you see is seamless, hopefully, if I haven't fluffed up in some way. But it means that I can change the kinds of content to be included, and it's really easy to do. So it's just kind of stop and start, really. I came across this video, as I said, and I hope that you'll take a chance to use it. Even if you know something else to use, you might be interested anyway, just to see the basics of it. I do want to clarify, however, that the paid subscription to Screencast-O-Matic provides a suite of editing capabilities. So while he says he isn't sure about that, it actually is the case. So you can use this for free, actually, and it's got the basics that he shows you on screen as he explains. If you pay an annual subscription for the kind of in-between program, it gives you some of the editing capabilities. If you pay more, then it gives you all of the editing capabilities for a whole year. So if you think this is something you're going to use, not just for this assignment, but other assignments, it might be worth it. I find that it's worth it, but that's, a decision you can make. But you can do quite a bit with the free version, and you can save on Screencast-O-Matic for a while for use if you wanted to use it again and that sort of thing. You can also download to YouTube directly from Screencast-O-Matic, so that makes it really easy to do so. As I mentioned before, you need to set up your own channel, but you can do that, and it's easy and ready to go. And as I mentioned, it's important to set aside time to learn the skills necessary. Okay, let's look at where we can find the information and where to submit and so on. So of course, you're going to have information in your syllabus. You will also have information in assignment information and rubrics, so you can go to the assignment and all of the information about it, as well as the rubric, which is here. And then you can read that over, and that will give you lots of information. You will notice that the rubrics are two parts. So there's one part, 20 of the points are for the actual presentation, 5 points are for the actual discussion or the artifact forum. So so you need to keep that in mind when you get your marks. You're going to get them in two parts. And then I'm going to go down to Module 4, which is where you will be submitting, and that will be in the intersectionality module. And here you will go to the artifact video assignment forum. There's a forum as well, the regular forum for Module 4, but this is a special forum. So it kind of goes between Modules 4 and 5 in a sense, because you will produce your video by the end of Module 4, but you will respond during Module 5, which is a longer than usual module, so there will be time for that. So we'll open it, and basically what you will do is, like you always do, add a new discussion topic. You will put the name of, or the name of the subject that you address in your video, or the title of your video if it's clear to other people what it's about. And keeping in mind that you want people to be able to find those that are of particular interest to them, and your title will be how you will do that. You'll then put in the message something as simple as, to find my video, please go to, and then the URL that will allow other people to see your video. That's all you have to do. You don't have to put more information than that. Just put that down. That will allow people then to just simply open the video. If it's not in hyperlink format, then it's a good idea to get it into that format if you can. And usually it just means simply that you type it in, and then you use your space bar to move your cursor, and that will usually just open up the hyperlink. And that's all there is to it. Then everybody will be able to see all of the videos, and you will be able then to watch at least 2 of them and respond to at least those 2 that you've watched. And you're free to watch as many as you want. Download them so that you can watch them later, etc. Or, of course, you can go back to the video, to the e-class as well if you want to. So I hope that explains any of the questions you may have about this assignment. And that if you have any further questions, please do feel free to get in touch with me about it. I know that there may be questions about the technical aspects of it. I may be able to answer them for you, or I may have to find another resource for you, but I will do my best. Hope this helps, and have fun with it. It's kind of a fun assignment if you let it be. Take care.